picture the scene for a second. It's a bit of a movie cliche at this point, but stay with me.
Okay.
You're in a dimly lit room. There are heavy velvet curtains. Maybe the smell of sage or old books is just really thick in the air.
Right, setting mood.
Exactly. And a mysterious woman with intense eyeliner flips over a card, the death card, and the music swells.
And the protagonist gasps.
We all know this image. We've been trained by pop culture to view tarot as this ancient, mystical tool for predicting the future. Something shrouded in secrecy and dark magic.
It is absolutely the dominant cultural image, for sure. I mean, it's what we expect, right? We want the mystery.
We do. But here's the curveball. What if I told you that for the first few centuries of its existence, that spooky image would have been completely baffling to the people actually holding the cards?
They'd have no idea what you were doing.
Exactly. What if the ancient wisdom of tarot isn't actually ancient at all, but rather a history of accidents and misunderstandings and honestly some really creative storytelling?
That is exactly the premise we are working with today. And I have to say, it makes the tarot way more interesting, not less.
I completely agree. We are taking a deep dive today into a really fascinating anthropological study. It's titled The Occult Tarot and Mythology by Sarah Caldwell and Dr. Dirks.
Yeah, and we should clarify right up front, this isn't a guide on how to read the cards or how to cast spells or anything.
Right, no crystal balls today?
No, this is really a look at us. It asks how a Renaissance parlor game evolved into a complex spiritual system. And more importantly, do the stories we tell about these cards qualify as a genuine myth?
That word myth is going to be doing a lot of heavy lifting for us today.
It really is.
So our mission for this deep dive is to trace this evolution, from card tables in Italy to occult lodges in France, and finally straight to the modern therapist's office. Because it turns out the history of tarot is actually a history of how humans crave meaning.
Yes.
We take chaos and we build a story around it.
Precisely. And I think we need to start by clarifying that concept of myth right out of the gate.
Good idea.
Because in casual conversation, if I say, oh, that's just a myth, I usually mean that's a lie. Or that's scientifically false.
Right, like Mythbusters. You want to bust the myth to find the cold, hard facts.
Exactly. But anthropologically, and specifically in how Caldwell and Dirks are using it in this study myth, means something very different.
It's not about historical accuracy.
Not at all. A myth is a story that carries profound cultural weight. It explains our place in the universe, it provides psychological truth, and it structures our reality.
It helps us navigate being human, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
So a story can be historically fake, but mythically true.
That is such a wild concept.
Yeah.
Factually incorrect, but emotionally and culturally true.
That is the core argument here. And frankly, that distinction is the only way to really understand tarot, because if you look at the actual history,
It's a mess.
it's a total mess of contradictions. But if you look at the myth, it is this perfectly structured, beautiful journey.
Well, let's look at that historical mess first. Let's rewind the clock all the way back to the beginning. We are in Renaissance Italy, the 1400s.
The Medicis, the Borgias.
Yeah, that whole Assassin's Creed vibe going on.
Yeah.
Wealthy families are commissioning these incredible hand-painted decks. Now, looking at them today, you or I see the High Priestess or the Hanged Man, and we automatically think occult secrets.
Right.
But what were they actually doing with them back then?
They were playing a game called Tarocchi.
And it wasn't a seance?
No, not at all. It was essentially bridge. It was a trick-taking card game.
Just a game. Like having your friends over for poker night?
It's just a game. The source highlights the Visconti Sforza decks specifically. These are some of the oldest surviving cards we have from Milan.
And they are gorgeous.
They are stunning. But they were massive status symbols. You would bring them out at parties to show off how much gold leaf you could afford to put on your playing cards.
It was about wealth, not wisdom.
Exactly. It was conspicuous consumption.
But I have to ask about the imagery. It's so specific. You have the Emperor, the Pope, the Wheel of Fortune. Why put that on a playing card if it doesn't mean anything spiritual?
Well, it did mean something, but it wasn't a secret. The study uses the term exoteric.
Exoteric, as opposed to esoteric.
Right. Esoteric means hidden or inner knowledge. Secret stuff you need a guru to explain to you. Exoteric means public outer knowledge.
The stuff everybody just knows.
Exactly. If you were an Italian noble in 1450, you didn't need a decoder ring to know what the Pope represented.
You just went to church.
Right. You saw the emperor and you knew that meant authority. You saw the Wheel of Fortune and you knew that meant luck or fate. These were just the standard figures of their society.
Pop culture icons of the Renaissance, basically.
Yeah, they were allegories for virtues and vices, but they were easily recognizable to anyone. They weren't designed to tell your fortune.
So it's like if we had a deck of playing cards today with a tech CEO or a pop star or the influencer printed on them.
That is a perfect analogy.
It reflects the world we live in, but it's not magical.
Exactly. It was a mirror of their social hierarchy, not a window into the astral plane.
Okay, so for centuries, people are just playing Tarocchi. It's a fun pastime. When does the switch flip? When do we go from bridge night to revealing the secrets of the universe?
This is the pivot point, the big aha moment, or maybe we should call it the great misunderstanding.
I love this part of the story.
We have to fast forward to late 18th century France. The game of Tarocchi had mostly faded out, but the cards were still circulating as these weird old curiosities.
Okay.
And then a man named Antoine de Gébelin walks into the room.
See, I love this guy because he shows how powerful a good narrative can be, even if it's wildly spectacularly incorrect. He basically invented the tarot as we know it completely by accident.
He really did. De Gébelin was a Freemason, he was a scholar, and he was a man utterly obsessed with antiquity.
Right.
So he looks at these old Italian game cards, and he doesn't see a game. He has a massive epiphany.
Just out of nowhere.
Just out of nowhere. He convinces himself that he is looking at the disguised pages of a lost Egyptian book, the Book of Thoth.
Saved from the burning libraries of ancient Egypt.
Yes. He published this huge encyclopedia called Le Monde Primitif, and in it, he claimed that the word tarot was derived from ancient Egyptian.
How did he break that down?
He claimed tar meant royal and ro meant road.
The royal road.
The royal road of life.
Okay, I have to admit, that sounds incredibly profound. It gives you chills. It feels true.
It does feel true. It's a very sticky concept. It sounds exactly like something an ancient priest would say.
But there's a catch.
There is a massive catch. As the study points out, when de Gébelin wrote this in 1781, Egyptian hieroglyphs hadn't been deciphered yet.
Wait, the Rosetta Stone?
The Rosetta Stone wouldn't even be discovered until 1799, and it wasn't deciphered until the 1820s.
Wow.
De Gébelin literally couldn't have known what ancient Egyptian words meant. He just made it up.
So the entire foundation of tarot as this ancient Egyptian magical tool, which, by the way, is still a huge part of the lore today, is based on a linguistic guess by a French guy who couldn't actually read Egyptian.
Factually, yes. Completely made up.
That is wild.
But this goes right back to our definition of myth. Culturally, it didn't matter that he was wrong.
The idea was just too good to fact check.
Exactly. It filled a void. People wanted a connection to ancient wisdom. They were living in the age of enlightenment, which was very rational, very scientific, and there was this deep hunger for mystery.
They wanted some magic back in the world.
They did. And then you have another figure, Atea, who took this Egyptian theory and basically commercialized it.
He saw an opportunity.
He saw a huge opportunity. He's the one who really popularized cartomancy, fortune-telling with cards.
So he turned the theory into a product you could buy.
He absolutely did. He started selling the idea that because these cards were secret Egyptian wisdom, they could predict the future.
But even then, it wasn't super deep.
No, it was mostly low-stakes fortune-telling. Will I find love? Will my business succeed? Will I get rich?
Very carnival tent.
Yeah, it wasn't yet a system of high spiritual philosophy.
That's a crucial distinction, I think.
Yeah.
There's a big difference between fortune-telling at a carnival and serious occult philosophy. So when does tarot graduate to the PhD level?
That happens in the mid-19th century. The study calls this the esoteric turn.
Okay.
The key figure here is a man named Éliphas Lévi. He wasn't interested in telling you if your boyfriend was cheating. He wanted a grand synthesis of all magic.
He was looking for the theory of everything.
Exactly.
Now, this is where it gets a little technical, but I think this is the most critical part for understanding why tarot still works so well as a system today. Lévi did something structural to the deck, right? He sort of plugged it into a bigger machine.
He did. He took the 22 major arcana cards.
Those are the big archetype cards, right? Like the Magician, the World,
yes,
Lovers.
big picture cards.
Right.
He took those 22 cards and he overlaid them onto the Hebrew alphabet.
Now, why the Hebrew alphabet? That seems like a massive jump from Egyptian cards.
It was a very strategic move. By connecting the cards to the 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet, he automatically connected them to the Kabbalah.
Specifically Jewish mysticism.
Right, specifically the Tree of Life.
And for anyone who doesn't know, the Kabbalah is essentially a complex map of the universe.
It is. It describes the emanations of God and the entire structure of reality. By mapping the tarot onto that ancient structure, Lévi totally legitimized it.
He gave it a spine.
Yes. The cards stopped being just pretty pictures or a guessing game. They became a textbook.
Wow.
Suddenly, you could argue that the tarot contained the actual code of the universe. If you studied the cards, you weren't just playing a parlor game, you were studying the mind of God.
So he literally built a bridge between a simple card game and high theology.
And that bridge allowed everything that followed. This synthesized system passed down to the Hermetic order of the Golden Dawn in Britain.
Ah, the Golden Dawn. I feel like this is the secret society that functions like the Avengers of the Victorian occult scene. You had W.B. Yeats, Aleister Crowley, all those famous figures.
They were hugely influential. They took Lévi's synthesis and codified it into a very rigorous, strict system. They mixed Christian mysticism, astrology, Kabbalah, alchemy, all of it into the tarot.
A giant occult melting pot.
Exactly. And out of this specific group came the deck that pretty much every listener is probably picturing right now when they think of tarot, the Rider-Waite deck.
Ah, yes. Published in 1909. And we have to talk about the artist Pamela Coleman Smith. I feel like she never gets enough credit for what she did.
She really doesn't. She was a genius artist, and the study emphasizes that this specific deck changed the game entirely.
Because of a user interface update, right?
Yeah.
To use a modern term.
A massive user interface update. Before the Rider-Waite deck, the minor arcana, the number cards, just looked like standard playing cards.
So the Four of Cups was literally just a drawing of four cups.
Exactly. Boring. And very hard to read. If I pull a card with 4 cups on it, I have no idea what that means unless I've memorized a very thick textbook.
Right. It's totally inaccessible to a normal person.
Yeah. But Pamela Coleman Smith illustrated every single one of them. She drew a guy sitting under a tree, his arms are crossed, he's looking bored, and he's completely ignoring a cup being offered to him by a mysterious hand floating in a cloud.
That paints such a clear picture.
It does. Suddenly you don't need to know the complex esoteric meaning of the number 4 in Kabbalistic theory.
You just look at the picture and you say, oh, that guy's apathetic. He's missing an opportunity because he's sulking.
Exactly. She democratized the narrative. She unlocked the storytelling potential for the average person.
And that leads us directly to the central myth that Caldwell and Dirks focus on in their study. Because once you have these illustrated scenes for every card, and you have this high concept structure holding them together, the tarot stops being a random collection of images.
It becomes a linear story.
The journey of the fool.
The journey of the fool. This is the prevailing myth of modern tarot. It's the grand story we tell ourselves about what the cards actually mean in sequence.
I love this concept so much because it frames the entire 78-card deck as the life cycle of a single character. It feels very Joseph Campbell, very hero's journey.
It is deeply archetypal.
Can we walk through that journey a bit?
Absolutely. The study breaks this down beautifully. It starts with the Fool, which is card 0.
Card 0, the number is important.
Very important. It's outside the sequence. It's the container for everything else. The Fool is the blank slate. Pure innocence.
Think of the art right. A young person stepping right off a cliff, looking up at the sky, not even watching their feet.
And in the context of the myth, this isn't stupidity, it's pure trust. It's the soul entering the world completely open to new experience.
So the fool is us, the listener, me, you. And the first thing the fool does on this journey is meet teachers.
Right. The magician and the high priestess. The source identifies these figures as the parental forces or the primary educators.
What do they teach?
The magician teaches active masculine energy, how to use tools, how to manifest your will, how to make things happen in the physical world.
And the high priestess.
She teaches passive feminine energy, intuition, silence, secrets the subconscious. The fool has to internalize both of these to grow.
And then they move on and meet worldly authority, the emperor and the empress. So they are learning the rules of human society. They're getting a job, paying taxes, fitting into the structure.
Yes. But a story where everyone just follows the rules is a very boring story. So naturally, we hit the trials.
The middle of the deck where things get rough.
Very rough. The source highlights a few key cards here. First, you have the Hanged Man.
Which always looks so scary in the movies, but it's literally just a guy hanging upside down by his foot.
And if you look closely at the Rider-Waite art, he has a halo around his head.
Oh, right.
It's not about torture. It's about suspension. It's about learning to see the world from a completely different angle. It's the sacrifice of the ego.
You have to stop pushing and just be.
Exactly. And that surrender leads directly to the card everyone fears the most, death.
The one card you never want to see in a reading. The gasp moment from the intro.
But in the journey of the Fool myth, death is almost never literal.
It's a metaphor.
It's the death of the identity you built in the first half of the journey. You have to shed your skin to keep growing.
So the person who followed the emperor's rules perfectly has to die so the true authentic self can be born.
Yes. But the trials aren't over yet. The source talks about the devil card next.
More scary imagery.
The devil represents the chains we build for ourselves. Addiction, materialism, toxic relationships. The fool, having survived the ego death, now has to face their own shadow.
And if they don't break those chains voluntarily,
the universe does it for them, and that brings us to the tower.
The tower.
This is honestly my favorite dramatic moment in the entire sequence. A lightning bolt strikes a tall stone tower. The crown is knocked completely off the top and people are falling out of the windows.
It's an image of total, utter destruction.
It is the destruction of false security. If you build your life, your tower on a foundation of lies or ego reality will eventually strike it down.
It's inevitable.
It's incredibly painful. It's a massive crisis, but it is absolutely necessary for the final stage. You cannot be free if you're trapped inside a burning tower.
Which finally leads us out of the darkness and into the resolution.
The dust settles. You get the star, which is pure hope and inspiration. Then you get the sun, which is clarity and joy.
And the final card.
The world. It represents total integration. The fool has completed the circle. They return home, but they are forever changed. They are wise now.
It really is a perfect narrative arc. It mirrors Jungian psychology almost perfectly, the process of individuation facing the shadow integration.
And that is exactly why the source argues this is a true myth. It doesn't matter that the cards were just a trick-taking game in 1450. The story we have projected onto them today aligns perfectly with how human psychology actually works.
It's a map of the human soul.
Yes, it is.
Which brings us to a really fascinating point about how people are actually using this map today. Because the study makes a really sharp distinction. For modern serious users, neo-pagans, psychotherapists, New Age practitioners, fortune-telling is actually considered the lowest form of tarot.
That's a really surprising finding, isn't it? We started the whole deep dive with that image of the fortune teller in the velvet room.
Right.
But for the community, the anthropologists actually studied asking, will I win the lottery?
Right.
Is seen as a complete misuse of the tool. It's considered very superficial.
So what is the high use? What are they doing instead?
Self-transformation. They are using the cards as psychological mirrors, not crystal balls. The goal isn't to predict the future, it's to create the future. And one of the most intense techniques mentioned in the source for doing this is called pathworking.
Now, this sounded incredibly trippy when I was reading the study. Can you break down what pathworking actually is in practice?
It's essentially a very deep guided visualization, or what Carl Jung would call active imagination. You don't just look at a piece of cardboard, you enter the card.
Like mentally stepping into the frame of the picture.
Exactly. Let's say you are struggling with a really difficult decision. You might pick the High Priestess card. You close your eyes. You visualize the veil behind her, the pomegranates on the tapestry.
You picture the details.
You might even imagine the smell of incense. And then in your mind's eye, you walk right up to her and you ask her your question.
And your subconscious provides the answer back to you in her voice.
Precisely. It's a way of hacking your own brain.
Yeah.
You are using the mythic imagery of the card to access parts of your psyche that you just can't reach with normal, everyday logical thinking.
So it's myth-making in real time. You aren't just reading the myth. You're living it.
Yes.
And Caldwell and Dirks provide a really powerful real-world example of this living myth in action in the study, the reaction to the September 11th attacks.
This was easily the most poignant part of the study for me. The anthropologists were actively monitoring online tarot communities when the 9/11 attacks happened.
And obviously the visual parallel was completely inescapable.
It was uncanny, the tower card. A tall building struck by fire from the sky crumbling to the ground. It looked exactly like the news footage we were all watching.
But the source notes that for the tarot community, this wasn't about saying, look, the cards predicted it.
No, not at all. It became a profound way to process the trauma.
Because if you understand the myth of the tower, you understand what comes next.
Exactly. If you view 9/11 as just a random, chaotic act of violence, it's senseless, it's terrifying, it's pure chaos. But if you view it through the archetype of the tower, it suddenly has a narrative place.
It fits into a structure.
Right. The tower means the shattering of a paradigm. It means the old world is gone, the false security is broken, and we have to rebuild on truth.
It frames the chaos.
It frames the chaos. It gave people a container for their massive grief. It essentially said, this is happening, it is horrible, but it is part of a larger cycle. After the tower comes the star.
It offered hope, not by denying the tragedy, but by contextualizing it. That right there is the pure anthropological definition of myth in action, a story that helps us process reality.
It connects the individual, isolated experience of trauma to a universal, timeless perspective. It makes you feel less alone in history.
So bringing it all together, we have to ask the big question that Caldwell and Dirks ask in the study. Is tarot a myth?
If we use the definition provided by William Doty in the text, that a myth is culturally important, imaginal, metaphoric, and emotional significant, then the answer is an absolute yes. It functions exactly like the Greek myths did for the ancients.
It's amazing to think about the historical journey we've just taken you on. We started with a Renaissance card game used for gambling at rich parties.
Just a game.
Then, because some French guys in the 1700s got their history completely wrong about ancient Egypt, we ended up with a complex psychological tool that literally helps people deal with modern trauma like 9/11.
It's a beautiful paradox. The historical facts about tarot's origins were wrong. It wasn't Egyptian. It wasn't a lost book of wisdom.
But the belief that it was ancient gave it the weight it needed to evolve.
Exactly. The error created a new kind of truth.
It's almost like the fool's journey itself. You start with total innocence or sheer ignorance in the case of Gébelin making things up, and through this long process of trial and error, you somehow gain real wisdom.
And there's one final irony the expert in me just loves here. The fool is card 0. But in many traditions, he is also placed at the very end of the deck.
The journey is a circle.
It is. We start as the fool, we learn everything, we face the trials, we become the world, and then we realize there's a whole new level of existence we don't understand yet.
And we become the fool all over again.
Ready to start a brand new cycle, it's never really over.
That's a really comforting thought. We're always just beginning.
Always.
So here's the thought I want to leave you with today as we wrap up. We've seen how humans took a simple stack of cardboard painted with pretty pictures and turned it into a profound map of the human soul just by projecting our stories onto it.
Just by needing it to mean something.
Exactly. It makes you wonder, what other completely mundane objects in our lives right now are just waiting for us to give them a mythic meaning? What everyday things are we currently turning into the magical tools of the future without even realizing it?
That is the big question.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you on the next journey.
Goodbye.